Welcome to Inspiring Salon Professionals, the podcast that allows every therapist, nail tech and stylist to level up, build their career and reach for their dreams. Each episode will be looking at a different area of the industry, and along the way I'll be chatting with salon owners, industry leaders and experts who'll be sharing their stories on how they achieved their goals, made their successes, all to inspire you in your business and career. I'm Sue Davies, your host, award-winning salon owner and industry professional. Welcome to Inspiring Salon Professionals. So hello and welcome to this week's Inspiring Salon Professionals. This week I am on video, so you know that I'm going to be recording an episode with a guest. I'm really excited to bring on my earlier guest, Sam Blake. She is pivoting her business somewhat from when we spoke last time, and Sam is moving far more into an area I think probably is going to suit her so much better because she's a really caring and helpful person in herself, and so she's moving into wellbeing and creating positive cultures in the salon environment. So today we're going to be talking about a video really that Sam put together that caught my eye, and I just thought it'd be really, really helpful to have her on at this time of year because it's very difficult time of the year for a lot of people, business-wise and personally. There's a lot of things at Christmas that trigger lots of different thought patterns and ways of behaving, and she is talking to us about rephrasing Christmas stress. Really, this goes, I mean, it does work throughout the rest of the year as well, so it doesn't matter if you pick this episode up in March or August, or if you are watching around the Christmas period, you'll see that I'm in full festivity. But Sam is going to be talking to us today about that rephrasing and about talking about how we think about stress and how we can help our workforce and our teams and ourselves to have a much less stressed Christmas. So I will see you on the other side. I'm really hoping it's going to be an interesting interview, and see you in a moment. So welcome to Sam Blake. And Sam has been a guest before, so you will have seen her if you've been catching up on all the episodes. But Sam's having a little bit of a change of direction. So Sam, do you want to kind of explain what it is that you are moving into? Because it's a really important thing for the industry.
Will do, but let's do a cheers first.
Yes.
I haven't seen you on Zoom for ages. Cheers.
Cheers.
Nabuno mug.
Yeah, my Nabuno mug.
Love it. I'm getting notifications now. Hold on. There we go. Right. So you will know me as the Safer Salon Geek. I am still the Safer Salon Geek, but I'm fast forwarding where I thought I'd be in 2 years' time to now, that my end goal was always about worker well-being and the health and safety side of being in salon, in clinic as a solo. So I retrained in the summer to be a mental health first aid instructor. So we'll be delivering some tertiary controls, back to those control things with risk assessment.
Like a posh lot of words there.
But yeah, so I've got the beauty background, trained as a hairdresser, I've got level 2, never professed to being any good at that. I can do your good blow dry, but that's about it. Was a spa therapist, massage therapist, white tights brigade. So I've walked the walk in the knowing what it's like to be employed, what it's like to be a solopreneur, what it's like to be a manager, working corporate, independent, little tiny closet salon. I've been there. And it's that I remember the pressure that I felt. So even with that external stuff going on, I'm been divorced once. So, you go through these journeys in your life while you're serving other people. And as an aromatherapist, as a body therapist, as a holistic therapist, I remember having to really sort of have a good talk with myself about how to be with my clients when I wasn't particularly feeling great.
Yeah, because I think that's something that's really, especially in the holistic side of things, and when you're literally laying your hands on people. And I know when I've had difficult times in my life, the last thing I want to do is put what's going through me, because know that that's going to transfer. And so managing it is really important.
It's having the energy to be giving, because that's what we do, whether we're doing some nail art on somebody's nails or blow drying somebody's hair or talking to them about their colour. The end point for us is always that feeling that the client goes away with, as well as the aesthetic.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was always very much within my journey through education and with my students. Just that very few places had a great culture for worker well-being.
Yeah.
In what I've experienced in my industry career life, and the very best quicked me out when I was having marriage difficulties, stuck me literally on an island to go away and work, you know, to give me that space to get. They turned that pressure, that dial right down for me at work.
Yeah.
So it's this chat is really about the little video that I put out the other day, isn't it? About
that's what kind of
stress
made me
versus
go, let's get
pressure.
Sam, because it's a difficult time of year. There's so many stresses and so many different things that we put on ourselves that our clients put on us, and we have to realize how to adapt to the clients putting that pressure on us.
Well, I don't know about you, it's this time of year is just that the bucket is full with people. It really is. And it only takes a specific memory, negative memory, a specific stress. You know, the person in front of you in the queue taking too long when you're doing your shopping before you're coming into the salon, or something like that. That clients are walking in a stressed out state, and we're on this high level fight, flight, anxiety. Got to deal with the clients, got to get them in, it's got to be perfect, everything's got to be perfect. And there's that stress that we put on ourselves to serve properly. And you know, we've got, I don't know, Mrs. Green coming in who's just so wired that one more drop, you know, and she's bubbling over. And it's nobody really teaches you to deal with that side of service. So in corporate, we would have done conflict resolution, you know, we would have done conflict resolution training. But if you're that 4-person salon, 5-person, or even 8-person salon, and you don't know what you don't know, where do you go to kind of get that information? In a way that's molded for our industry. So that's
where you're going to step in.
That's what I'm about moving forward, taking the stuff that happens in corporate and going, okay, what do I know? What do I don't know? How can I spin that to make our gorgeous salons, these places, these hubs where people want to come and work, because there's a culture there that spills out from the clients even talking about how staff are together. And that's the other thing, isn't it? You know, we've had conversations before about working way back when in some really rubbish environments where you didn't get a lunch break. You know, you worked over, and you were just wired by the end of the day, either wired or just.
I know when I had my salon, the first couple of years, we just work. And because I think I opened my business cleverly. I opened on the 19th of November, which was a really amazing time of the year to open. So that Christmas was so vital, that first Christmas. And we literally worked back to back, no breaks. We literally ate on the run. If we got finished 5 minutes early, we ran to the shop and grabbed something terrible to eat. But over the next few years, I realized that we needed to do something different. And so I did, and I scheduled dedicated, like, I can't remember the times now, probably 15-minute breaks, something like that. Every couple of hours, I gave us a 15-minute break. And we had like a proper half an hour break at lunchtime. So we, you know, because everybody wanted to work and get through, because they were self-employed that were in my salon mainly at that time. And I did have a couple of employees as well. But everybody was quite happy to work. And I just staggered breaks all through the day. And I used to supply bad food really, but you know, sausage rolls and Scotch eggs and all that kind of party food, so that there was something called pita breads and tzatziki and hummus and stuff. So there's something that's quick and simple that you can grab on the run. A few quality treats thrown in, of course, because it's Christmas. But just to give them something that they know that when they finish Mrs. Green, they've got 10-15 minutes to go and go and have a bit of fresh air, walk around the garden, do whatever they need to do, so that they come back in feeling refreshed. Because there's nothing worse than that. You get to a point where you haven't been to the loo for 7 hours, which is ridiculous. Which is ridiculous. It's not healthy on so many levels. And I think, you know, every year you see all these girls, and like having the snow now is going to make it worse. I've seen girls already this morning saying that they're going to close their salons because they don't want to drive in the snow, or they can't get to work because there's too much snow. And so then that 10 clients that were on that day for each of those therapists has then got to move somewhere. So the pressure pot's going to be building at this point.
Where are we going to be putting them?
Yeah.
And
those girls are all going to be having that stress. The managers, owners of those salons are going to be feeling it.
So it comes back to your processes, doesn't it? And how you forge your salon. So hearing what you said, you went through it hammer and tongs for a few years, and then suddenly went, actually my culture has got to change. And again, you don't know what you don't know. If you don't know how to create a business with a culture, we just know how to do our treatments, and we're learning about our pricing and everything else that goes with it. That cultural side of when it's particularly just been you, or maybe a trusted other, and it's been 2 of you, 3 of you, and then you start to grow your people, that becomes a salon operational procedures thing, that you've got to have your SOP in place. And part of your SOP really needs to be, okay, well, how do I look after my team? So
just so for anyone that's listening or watching that doesn't know what a SOP is, could you please explain what a SOP is?
Oh, it's your blueprint. It is your everything comes out of your SOP. So whether that is so if I put my health and safety head on, I'd do method statements for cleaning in a health and safety pack. How you physically do your ABCDs in the day. You're already doing it. You've probably got a cleaning rota. You've probably got a little bit that you give out at induction. Maybe you've got a full induction system. But your salon operation procedure is literally how you open, how you close, what you do within that time, the extension of what you do every week, what you do every month, what you do every quarter, how you deliver your brand, your service, your client experience, and that stretches right out to your customer journey. We then get into, have you got your website, Google your business? It's your massive bigger picture thing. But when you strip it back, everybody does the massive picture. But what I'm good at with my left-handed brain is I look at the infinite detail and the finesse and did as a manager of what are we delivering, how are we delivering it, even down to how you fold your towel and you present your room.
That's very important.
The smell, the sound, the temperature, as 2 perimenopausal women, we don't want to be going into a hot room.
I know, because I put jumper on and I'm severely regretting it this morning. But it is. But I think that the SOP thing or SOP is vital, and so many new solopreneurs or salon owners don't always understand. And I know with me, so much of it was in my head. I tried so many times to create this whole salon manual, but it lived in my head, and I found it really, really hard to get it out.
Do you know what? This is what I always say now with the tech that we've got. You can have your blueprint, you can have flow charts, you can make it visual, you can do whatever your staff need it to be. And we could get into neurodiversity and all sorts, going down that rabbit hole. That's a whole another chat. But the whole well-being side, the whole recruitment side, I would question how many smaller salons actually do appraisals. Do you actually have a set induction system? Because it becomes this, what you see all over Facebook. Oh, it's always Sally Ann with me. You'll have to excuse me. That's Louise's fault, because we always had Sally Ann models. Sally will, moan about, Matilda not doing X, Y, and Z properly on Facebook. But when you actually have a little chat with Sally Ann, she's got no SOP. She's got no systems. She's got no processes. So that's on your kind of functionality side. The thing that always gets ignored is, how are you looking after each other? How are you giving time? How I call it the pause. How are you creating that pause in the day that you come together as a team? Because even that 5-minute startup meeting, that handover book, helps with the psychological safety of being listened to by not only your boss or the salon owner, but everybody within that team. So psychological safety is something that I would say I felt 74% of the time in my employed career. And when it's bad, it's really bad, and that's where you get people jumping ship. As a coper, my personality type is, throw me in with anything and I will cope and I will thrive to a point.
Yeah.
And it will be a very long point, but I would be the person who, why are you handing your notice in? And I'm like trying to tell the person, this has been a very, very long time coming for me to get to that point, to go, sorry, I can't do this for you anymore.
Yeah, that's it. That's the same with me. I will tolerate. I've got a very high tolerance level of being crapped on, basically, which is not, it's not a good thing, because your resiliency in the end just dies a death. And it oh God, itchy face today. Menopausey stuff, itchy. But it's but that whole thing of like recognizing that you have got people within your team that aren't coping and are pretending to cope, because I think that's the thing, isn't it?
The mask.
Coping is the worst thing in the world. And I'm going to digress slightly. One of my friends has suffered with quite extreme mental health issues over the years, and she had a full breakdown, proper breakdown, and that was because she coped with a very, very challenging personal situation involving family members that had been very, very damaged in a big industrial accident. And she coped for 2 years with this, and eventually her cope broke, and she ended up in hospital and was very, very unwell. And she's still, I mean, she's in her 70s now, and she still has issues with mental health. And I think that coping thing, and I can remember when I had my daughter, I ended up with postnatal depression, and I can remember this particular woman saying to me, "You've got to stop coping, because coping is not actually dealing with anything. And all the time you're coping, there's a problem." And I've still carried on my coping.
That's the manifestation of it building and building and building into something where you go pop, and that can take years. Stress builds up over years. But my belief, having that sort of 74% great experience in industry, is I look at what was the case within that organisation or within that small business or within that education establishment. How did they treat me as an employee? Was I valued? And for me, I can think now, going right back to recruitment processes and the way that even the advert was constructed wasn't about necessarily what was needed at the place, but it's what spoke to me of what I needed, the type of place that I needed to work in at that point. And again, I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong, that it's we need this, we'll give you XYZ, without actually, like we do with our marketing, looking at the persona of who we're actually talking to, who we're trying to attract. And that should your baseline for how you're sending out what you do for psychological safety. If you want the right staff, think about that within how you're recruiting.
Your staff avatar, isn't it, really? And I mean, like you say, we talk about client avatars all the time, but our staff avatar is probably really as important, because they will help with as client avatar. But also, one of the things I was just talking about in the last episode was about really thinking about what your salon avatar is. And I think we all need to look at that picture that goes out to the world of what our salon is about and what our business is about and what we're about. And
it's your messaging,
because our clients are looking for that feedback from us, and our staff are looking for that feedback from us. So we need to, as business owners, start putting out there what we're about.
Look, I had a conversation with somebody the other day about eco and sustainability, and the first hurdle is always, but that's expensive to do. And then it becomes a bigger picture thought process of, okay, you've got to look at your pricing structure and everything else. However, look at your client avatar. You're telling me that you're getting vegan products in as a third line, for example. But what are you doing within your culture, within your brand, within your whole kind of bubble to attract that person into your bubble?
Yeah.
So it's deeper thinking, isn't it,
Isn't
at
it?
the end of the
And
day?
even, we were talking when we just before we came on about branding and stuff and about colors, and and if you're going to be that vegan salon that's organic and does everything, how much green, brown and ochre colors and stuff have you got in your branding? Are you pink and rose gold? Because that doesn't tell someone that you're going to be big. It tells them that there's going to be a nice salon, they're going to come out looking great, but it doesn't tell them what your fundamental belief is, and
Yeah.
you're using color to do that. And also,
And that, I'm going to pick you up on that keyword there, that belief.
yeah.
So that belief of what you're trying to create for your client. So what is your belief of this treasure chest of people? And they are your treasure chest. Who goes into that treasure chest?
Yeah.
Do you actually understand about personality typing and how team demographics are actually formed to create that superpower?
Yeah.
Those jewels coming out of your treasure chest.
Yeah.
To deliver your vision, your brand to your client base.
Yeah.
And I just, having again been on the receiving end of it, of this is what we do, this is how we do it, that's great. But I'd probably say on one occasion I shouldn't have been employed because I wasn't that person who couldn't give my client time. So on that one day trial, as I had in my head, at the end of the day I just said, this place isn't for me, I'm really sorry, but I'm not the right fit for you.
Yeah. It's like so many people. There was where I used to live in Kent, there was a spa that was fairly local to me, that's a fairly nationally well known, has won loads of awards and all the rest of it, and I visited it as a client, and it's one of the reasons that I actually ended up going in to do what I do now. And I sat having all these treatments. I thought, do you know what? It's time. I'm going to do this now because I've been wanting to do it since I was a teenager. And that experience made me want to do it. But it also made me never want to work there because I could see how their therapists were treated, because it literally is a conveyor belt. And, as you come out of the room as the client, the next client's sitting outside waiting to go in. And those just unworkable. And for me, I'm like you, I want to be able to give that experience and that calmness, and and for the clients to never feel the pressure that I've got to turn that around.
That having, training people to have that kind of process of that time they've got with their client. I've rarely had that conversation with a manager. How we deliver what we deliver within an induction process, to say, okay, you need to be out 5 minutes before so that there's no crossover with the client. So when we talk about stress and when we talk about pressure, the pressure is to deliver the service within that time and get that turnaround time going on. And to have your systems in place, like if the client turns up late, for example, then what does the person say? This is all kind of like the superficial level to your psychological safety, that person knows how to interact with that client. But you have to rewind that back down to that systems and procedures that I love, and policies. I call it policy and practice. It's all very well and good, like with health and safety. The tick box activity thing that seems to be what some in our industry think that health and safety is. It's not what it is. It's not just having a piece of paper banked just in case you've got to pull it out. It's okay, well, within those policies, you're talking about a dermatitis policy. How do you bring that in every week, every day into your salon? It's a smidgen of psychological safety. But if you've got somebody who you've employed with dry skin, history of eczema, you've got a duty of care to everybody in the salon, once a week on a 5-minute meeting. Let's check our hands. Simple. Let's check our hands. Anything change? We look at ourselves every day. We're not going to see it. Somebody else might. But it's that togetherness, that we've got each other's back type of aspect that I think works. On the flip side of that, when you've got a member of the team who's poorly, and again, I've worked in environments where that person wasn't necessarily managed properly, the HR systems were not in place. So, one instance that automatically springs to mind, the pressure dial would go up and it would become a stress. around a certain period of every month when, you know, we all knew, we were savvy, this person was going to be off for various reasons. So we'd then have to take on their clients.
Yeah.
But there'd be no managing of the column to pre-plan and kind of accommodate this, no sort of restructuring in our timetables.
Yeah.
So me being the coper, I'm fine. Yeah, I can stay after work. Yeah, because I've already thought in my head, I'm going to have to block out another 2 hours. Yeah, I'll do overtime. The mum with 2 kids every month.
Yeah.
So I had pressure because I learned to dial it up and dial it down. She had stress.
Yeah.
Who lasted longer in the job role? Brilliant therapist, amazing therapist.
Yeah.
Put too much in the stress bucket.
That's it.
6 months
And,
later, gone.
and if the management team aren't recognizing that or aren't aware that that needs to be looked at, because I think this is the thing as well, isn't it? And you talk about corporate earlier. You know, I come from a corporate background before I came into industry, and in corporate, employment law is seen so much more seriously. And oh God, I lost me. Hang on 1 second.
Don't worry, it's an outtake.
I know.
I've got a snoring dog down the side of it.
I know. It's because I can't turn these notifications off. The joys of Zoom and having a computer that you can't make the notifications disappear. Anyway, but the whole thing with the corporate is that you get managed differently, I've found. And I think that there's a whole structure, and I think that that is missing in industry. So if there's anything we can do to put some kind of structure and protection in for our employees and for our clients as well.
How many people get trained to be a manager?
No.
How many people within their SOP look at it from the HR point of view and go, okay, well, if I'm going to elevate this therapist, who's a brilliant therapist, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a brilliant manager to that management level. That's then putting extra pressure on that person because you're not helping them achieve the expectations that you've got in your head, but you've not put any sort of plan of action to help them achieve what you need them to achieve. So yeah, it's bigger picture thinking, isn't it? But to draw back down to that psychological safety aspect, it's how you do what you do.
Yeah, we need to change, and that whole thing around like the culture within salons, you know, that you having the tools, because so much of it is, isn't it? If and going back, I did an episode with Carl Hinder recently, and he spoke about being a therapist with a set of keys. And so many of us as salon owners,
100%.
we may develop as salon owners and as managers, but initially probably 70-80% of us are therapists with a bunch of keys, or hairdressers with a bunch of keys.
That rewinds back to understanding people's personalities as well, and their own abilities. Yeah, you know, I've been there, you've been there. Here's a set of keys, you're managing the salon now.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, it's mind blowing, because you do, so many of us go from that role of being behind the desk, behind the couch, whatever area we work in the industry, we go from that to suddenly having mega responsibility with no training, with no support, with no understanding necessarily. You know, we might have read a book about opening our salon, but you know, we probably did that years ago, and we're now wherever we are.
That's us with our personality
and creating
types.
That culture in industry.
You're saying that's what you and I would do.
Yeah.
But if I think back to my students over a 16-year period, I can think of, you know, more than half, if not 3/4, wouldn't even think to even pick a book up.
Yeah.
Get on a podcast.
And I mean, I was really, I count myself as really fortunate that I came into the industry in my probably, I must have been my late, I don't know what I was, in my 30s, 22 years ago. So I was about mid 30s when I came into, I was 30 to 33, I think, when I did my first course. And but before that, I'd worked in the health service for 18 years, and I'd worked as a PA, I'd worked as an office manager. I helped my husband set his business up. I used to do his VAT account. I still do his VAT accounts even now, all these years on. But I'd always done his bookkeeping. So I had a whole mine of information in my head about how to do operations, how to manage teams, how to do so many different things that huge numbers of people coming in with their set of keys don't have. And if you haven't got those the transferable skills, and I've spoken about this so many times on the podcast about transferable skills and recognizing what skills you have got and how you can develop those within your business, And it isn't. I think you and I, Sam, are in places now where everything we do is about trying to get people to understand that there's more skill to what we do than just putting some face cream on someone's face and massaging it in a beautiful way, or doing a lovely blow dry, or doing a nice set of nails.
Or being diligent with your waxing. Yeah.
We as an industry, we need to evolve to recognize that those other skills, and it kills me that they're called soft skills, because it's so often referred to as a soft skill, and in actual fact they're so fundamental to what we do. So yeah, anyway, we could go on for hours about that. But I want to pick up on the phrase that you've used several times about the pressure. And when I listened to your little video that you put on the group the other day, it was like a bit of a light bulb moment for me, because I've been a stress head for years, and I've gone through, like, yeah, I've had counselling, all sorts of wonderful, joyful things to try and get me through the other end of it. And at no point have I ever, and maybe someone has said it to me previously, but it's never sunk in. But when I listened to your video the other day, this whole thing around pressure, and that pressure is part of stress, but it's something that can be relieved, and it's something that can come off. And to me, it was like, it just felt like, you know, the analogy of like when we're doing massage and we put pressure on and pressure off and stuff. And it was like, oh yeah, wake up moment. And I think that whole thing about rephrasing the word stress into pressure that can disappear, and not getting trapped in that stress. Because for me, I've been trapped in stress for way too long.
I've just put you on mute because the dog's with her heart condition having a really good cough.
Oh, he's so lover.
Yeah.
And I can hear her snoring every now and again.
Yeah, she's there, always by my feet.
Mine have disappeared. I've got mine out of the room now because they were driving me mad.
Oh, the outtakes with dogs. Yeah, it's that. Yeah. So moving forward with what I do and what I'm about, I've got some brilliant HSE, Health and Safety Executive, have just brought out some brilliant training. Menopause brains kicked in.
Yeah. It's great, isn't it? I don't even know what was like, I've lost it now.
Okay. We're gonna have to have a pause in your thing on your podcast with this and put a bit of music in.
Yeah. That's fine. We can. So we were talking about what you're offering and about HSE.
Thank you.
There you go. We got back. I'm leaving this in because I think it's really important that people understand that this is what happens, and the brain just stops functioning.
Oh,
I think
seriously, if you are watching this, even if you're a 25-year-old woman, man, what have you, get Davina McCall's book, because that is such an eye-opener.
Yeah.
And will help you to understand how to dial the stress level down, the pressure level down for somebody who is perimenopausal. Because I can tell you now, you can sit and you can be talking, and I'm on it. I've always been on it. I'm like quick fire, Yosemite Sam on it. No, those hormones kick in and you are well and truly stuffed. Anyway, HSE have just released all of their data in November about the percentage of people off sick across all industries with work-related stress, or stress, anxiety, or depression. And it was creeping up, obviously, with the pandemic. That's the word that I never mention now. You knew, common sense, it was going to shift. Musculoskeletal disorder has always been that top level. Now, for the HSE to be recognising in their inspections, obviously we don't get those yet, that stress is a massive, massive, massive deal, massive impact on any industry, any business. For them actually to be working with NEBOSH and writing a course together, that's got to tell us something. Absolutely. So I'm off in January doing that, a wellbeing in the workplace, basically cementing everything that I already know, right? Yeah. Get a bit of paper, because we like a bit of paper in our industry. So
even Gecko to kind of, and Wall Street to thank for that thing about stress, haven't we? That it's good and we should thrive under stress. In actual fact, is the last thing.
For me, it's wrong phrasing.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as positive stress, because of the impact it has on your endocrine system.
Yeah.
you know, the impact it has on your gut health. There's no such thing as positive stress.
No.
I don't care what anybody says.
No. I actually had a blood test once when I was going through my vitamin D deficiency stuff. And I had got, that is, I mean, that's a whole other episode. But when I was going through that, I was being tested for so many different health conditions because we couldn't work out. I was so unwell. And I remember being at the London Bridge Hospital. Fortunately, I had some health scheme that I could use. And I ended up at London Bridge Hospital, and I sat with this doctor who was an endocrine specialist. And I was in such a raised state of anxiety, stress. I literally could barely talk without bursting into tears. It was a horrendous period of my life. And I sat in his office and I was going, but there's this and there's that, and I feel like this and I hurt and there's all these terrible things. And I ended up getting really distressed and having probably really like an anxiety attack. Must have been along those lines. I've never been good at working out if that's what that is, because I just was really stressed. And he's like, right, okay, we're going to do you. And he did what would you call it? Cortisol test there and then. And because he thought I might have had Cushing's syndrome.
Yeah.
And because of how I was presenting and stuff. And oh my God, honestly, but he said, we need you to go and sit somewhere quietly first to let your levels try and come back down. But even doing that, my level, I mean, fortunately, I didn't have Cushing's syndrome, but my stress levels at that point, the cortisol running through my body was so high.
Yeah.
And I was constantly
let's rewind that story back.
Yeah.
Right. You're presenting in salon as somebody who can cope.
Yeah.
Who suddenly has a change, who, if you know, you're going to be thinking, okay, how much daylight do we get in a salon? You know, we've spoke before, you got your UV filters on the window because you got your gel polish.
Yeah.
So we think we're getting daylight, we think we're getting sunlight. Rewind that to you're in a team environment, you're suddenly starting to behave slightly differently.
Yeah, my cousin intervened.
But who exactly? Your cousin intervened. We spend the majority of our time at work.
Yeah.
And again, this is that transference with corporate, that you've got a HR team. They're tertiary controls in our industry, you know, and I'm not going to decry anything that anybody does with their support on the end of the phone and everything else. But that's practical. That's the practical of you need this, and this in place, not the holistic of do you have the skill set to be looking at a person who you've known 6 months, 3 months, 3 years, 10 years and go, bloody hell, there's been a bit of a change in you.
Yeah.
And being able to have a non-judgmental conversation with that person and broach it in that work environment. Yeah. Been there.
Because I mean that lead up to me being in that consultancy room was in the I'd been becoming progressively more and more visibly not right. And it got to the Christmas of 2014 and I'd had a particularly massive year of lots of different things going on, including my daughter moving to Scotland to go to university, which was probably the pinnacle and was the worst thing that happened. And after, even now, it still makes me go a bit, oh yeah, it's terrible. Even she lives up there now and I should know better. But it's still that the thought of her going still does this to me. Anyway,
take a breath.
I know, but it's there, isn't it? Because it's the emotion of it.
It's the emotion.
But by that Christmas, my cousin who worked with me, she just said to me, like, what is wrong with you? Like, there is something really not right with you. And it wasn't, but she's the one that she stepped in and she created what you needed. It's terrible, isn't it? It's still there. But she created what you need in that moment, which is an intervention.
Yeah.
And if she hadn't have intervened, I don't know where I would have been. But she made me go to the doctors, which was what made me understand that I had this like literally zero vitamin D. I had nothing left in me. So it's no wonder I felt as rubbish as I did. And it took about 18 months.
It's that thing of, if you don't see your team like your treasure chest, and you haven't got a culture aspect in mind within your business, and you don't see yourself, whether you're a manager, supervisor level, or the owner of the salon, as that's not my responsibility, then that becomes presenteeism kicks in, absenteeism kicks in. And it's asking yourself the right questions. You know, when I was managing, right, if I ever had a member of staff who left, I didn't even know what the phrase exit interview meant.
No.
But common sense, personality type, caring attitude for the company as well. You know, it was a case of, well, why are you leaving?
Yeah.
What talk to me about, because I'd forged that relationship as somebody who was fair but firm if they needed to be, and I'd get down and, you know, clean the toilet and everything else. And, you know, if somebody was having a bad day, we'd look at a move around, and that, I didn't even know what psychological safety was, but I was doing it. And it was this thing of being able to actually determine why that person was leaving so that we could then look at what we could do better. Don't see a lot of that. No. It's get rid, gone, you don't want to be here anymore, well, I don't want you. Rather than the retrospective reflection of, well, what has happened, what hasn't happened for that person to then be leaving.
It is, and it's terrible. And I know, like, you know, and I'll quite happily put my hand on the heart. And I've been a horrendous manager at different points, and especially when I was going through all of that stuff back in 2014.
Well, you can't manage. You can't manage when you're like that.
I couldn't manage myself, let alone anybody else.
Yeah.
And I made some really questionable decisions that I've spoken to people about since, and have had to go back and because I've retrospectively gone.
Sue, that's the point.
Yeah. What was I doing?
Self-reflected back on it. Yeah. I guess there's a lot of people who don't even consider
no, it. And but I think as a manager, you can't, you know, if you realize that you aren't going down the right track, that you need to speak to the people who you went down the wrong track with, and correct it. And I hope I managed to do that. I may not have done, but I think the things that I where I know I was making wrong decisions, I have spoken to those people and have gone, yeah, maybe we need to have a little chat about that. Because it's terrible. And I was in a bad place where I was making bad decisions, and that happens when you're under that much stress and pressure. You don't make the right choices.
Look, I literally broke in a meeting. So this is when I was in education, that my coping mechanism before I knew the word no was so high that it was a case of my bucket was already there. There was no outlets, no nothing. And I sat in a meeting, and it was literally like people were putting lead weights in my bucket. Everything was coming back on me. And all I had that day was, I'm taking the dog out for a walk. I'm leaving on time and taking the dog out for a walk. And that was what did me. The going in the bucket, and I just went, I can't do this anymore. And a couple of my mates looked at me and were like, oh, okay. And literally I went blank. Don't remember any of it, but I went blank. 3 months off work with no real positive journey coming back into it. But I look back on the culture of that place, and it was designed to break you. You know, it was just, absolutely. I learned the most, but sacrificed too much.
And I think it is, and you know, this is turning into like the Stu and Sam therapy session. But you saying that though,
people Sam, knowing that you can be as strong as you are today. And everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a story. But it's that journey that you take and those acknowledgements that you make that bring you to where you are at this point. And this is why I do what I do. And that is why you do what you do.
Is, but you know, but you saying that whole point of when the lead weight's going in, and I think that in that moment where you broke, and I think we know, like, I've had a moment probably quite recently where I broke, and I think that we need to, as an industry, recognize that A, that's not acceptable, and B, that we need tools in place to recognize when we're on that road to the break, because we don't, no human deserves to get to that point. And we shouldn't be in a place where we can't actually say, excuse me, but I can't do this now.
Look, a salon owner and manager can't control, there's no control over what is happening in somebody's home life. But what you can create within your business is sanctuary. That if you have that And that becomes, whereas if you're not that personality who is warm and nurturing, you need that within your team.
You need someone to be that person.
You need that person within your team.
Otherwise, you're just battering people all the time, and it's not. But
then it's the pressure that owner feels, because they don't know, they've not got the psychological skill set. I'm not going to say emotional intelligence, but
no. But it's an awareness, isn't it? Maybe even a psychological awareness that how you can impact on another person. Yeah.
Emotional intelligence is too strong. It's that, and we can get into psychology of upbringing and everything else.
It's a recognition, isn't it? And a recognition of your own personality type and your own how those extrovert elements of you affect other people. And in fact, do you know what it's called? I've just had a little brain jog from when I was on PTA many years ago, and we had one of the girls that was on our PTA was.
I've avoided that.
I know. See, this is a problem. Girl through and through. Always been on every bloody committee. I'm stopping that. I'm never doing it again. But anyway, but this, I can see her face, and I can't think what her name was. It doesn't matter anyway. But we were sat in a meeting one night, and there was a bit of a debate going on, and it got quite heated. And she used this term, affect, and and like now, being more knowledgeable and stuff, I would imagine it's kind of a bit like Brangelina kind of thing. It's a bit of a thing about the kinetics and the effect, and it's how you affect, and it's the result of someone doing something that affects you, is my understanding. And it is, and I think maybe it's something that we need to look at more in this industry, is this whole affect thing. She was we were all just like, what is that about? And she sat and gave us this like proper psychologist version of what affecting is, and it's fascinating. And I think that's probably what we're describing. Yeah, pretty much. Sorry, digressed. That's all right. But again, we're going back to, you're setting up a business and you're putting HR stuff in place and you've got all the paperwork, but it becomes, what do you do within your own CPD as that senior person to actually grow yourself with leadership and management training? So there's, you've already mentioned one. Carl Hinder is a brilliant coach. Wrong word, sorry, Carl. Mentor, strategist. He has a very good way of toughening you up. Which is great if you haven't got that. But again, Carl's history is corporate, and a lot of that comes from outside of industry, because he's bringing that into industry because it isn't here. I was lucky. I had people literally walked into the salon that I ran, multi-award winning salon, sister salon to another salon, who had the skill set because of where they'd come from, who then transferred it onto us. Lucky to save my life that day. Major. But again, let's draw it back. You might have a team of 12, you might have a team of 3. The same rule applies in how you manage those individuals. And about balancing them, isn't it, as well? The balance, and it is just creating, it needs to, yes, we do need to have rules and regulations within what we do within our businesses, and the staff need to have like criteria that they have to work to and standards they have to work to. But equally, we do have to have this soft side to our business where you do feel cosseted and you do feel valued and you do feel that you have a valid thing to say, or whatever you want to bring to the table will be recognized. It might not necessarily happen, and that your idea or your thought or your comment may not be acted upon, but that you've got a safe environment to say it. So coming back to like the resilience thing, so we're looking at individuals and how we treat them as staff and how the managers act as an individual, but like how does resilience affect the business generally as well, is something that we might need to look at, isn't it, Sam? For me, when you look at people like, I love Stephen Bartlett, right? I think that guy has just got it completely right. He will talk about organizational resilience being that forefront. So
what again we hear on Facebook, let's say, in our industry is this person, that person can't do, can do. The individual resilience, that individual's resilience, that's one part of the whole psychological safety picture, that if you haven't got organizational resilience, and we bring it back down to policies, procedures, SOPs, those bits of paper, the boring but necessary, in practice, within your brand image, within your bubble of what you deliver. So your last point of call really is your client, you know, and we go, oh, I'm buying this product, that product, I'm putting this on the wall, that on the wall. But actually rewinding it back to when you even set up, what am I trying to create? The type of people that I want to draw in. There's a guy in the States as well, whose name I cannot remember, he took a pay cut in his organization to make sure that he could keep the right people, and he now has, you know, thousands of people trying to recruit to his company because he got the psychological safety aspect of it right, so he attracts the talent. So in this kind of famine of talent, you know, it becomes what could you do better, because I hate that phrase, oh, what could you do better? It's what, in addition to what you're doing, can you grow to make your business that go-to business? I can tell you now, the go-to business I ended up working for was the business that ended up getting taken over. And when I was at college, I said to myself, that is the salon I'm going to work at. And everything that I did was to get myself through that door to work at that salon because it had the best reputation. So
I think, you know, what we put out there is so important, isn't it? Because you do, you know, you want to attract that Sam because she's so desperate to work for you, and that's what you want to create, isn't it? Is to have an establishment where people will quite happily walk away from another job they love because what you offer and how you deliver your service and all of that. The bigger picture, your salon avatar is that
it's not recruitment, is it? It's not recruitment. You're being a talent seeker. That's what you're doing. So that rephrasing of I'm recruiting, well, I'm talent seeking. And are you constantly talent seeking, you know, or there's a whole kind of mindset change. Your staff are your treasure box and you're attracting talent, not a employee.
And I think one thing, like that, we're going back slightly to the resilience, and one thing that I wrote down that I feel is something that's changed massively in our industry around resilience is that, you know, we have just come out of like a very long time. I don't even know. I can't even. Well, we're nearly 3 years of pandemic and the effects of the pandemic.
Well, you've got pandemic, you've got Brexit, you've now got the situation that we're in now. We're not out of anything.
No, we aren't out of anything. And I think that we as an industry have, you know, I mean, there isn't an industry that hasn't been affected by the pandemic, but we were one of the industries that were probably more affected by the pandemic, and more people have shifted their way of working and thinking and everything around how they deal with clients and how they deal with their business as a result of those 3 lockdowns that we went through. And that has left us with and it is a born stress and a born pressure that we have continued to take with us. And I was watching that This England recently that Kenneth Branagh did with all about Boris Johnson and the government through the pandemic. And to a degree, I think it's worth sitting through, because it gives you a moment to reflect on where we were 3 years ago and what we went through, because it triggered me quite a lot of different things as I was watching it, of what we've gone through, what my part in our industry story was, and all of us had some part in that, whether we were a salon owner, an employee, whatever. We all were invested in what happened during that time, and we all are carrying those kind of scars isn't the right word, but we're all carrying that emotional baggage with us still. And we need to be.
There's a continued fear. There's a continued fear. Because of what's continually the kind of the aftermath of it, what's going on in the rest of the world.
And I think the industry is still feeling Yeah.
Everything's there rather than there.
The industry's kind of cup is getting to the top.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
And we've been there, and our cup has overfloweth with stress. I can't say that's a hard one to say.
It's fear.
Previously.
It's fear as well, isn't it?
Fear.
The fear.
And I think that we felt there was, or not all of us, there was an element of the industry that felt victimized then. There's an element of the industry that feels victimized now with all of the, and it is, and I am really feel for everybody that's got commercial premises at the moment, because I know that the issues around commercial energy are so different to residential energy. And I'm so glad I have not got a commercial premises at this point. But, you know, and all of those businesses are they've got such a challenging time ahead of them. And the resilience they need to grow now and getting this. And that's why I thought it was so important to kind of have this conversation with you today, Sam, because we need to be resilient, and our resilience has been battered over the last few years. And we need to find a way to look after ourselves and to look after our teams and to look after our clients, because that's fundamentally why we're there.
Yeah.
And anything we can do, any tools that we can have to ease that journey have got to be worthwhile. Sorry, that's like my little monologue there. But it is, I think there's just something that at this point we're about to overflow again, I feel. I
think we already are. I think just talking to other people in the industry who deal with salon owners, there's a pressure cooker going. Silly season's here. Silly season will be over in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, that pressure dial goes down.
Yeah.
But then a different pressure kicks in because we've gone feast. Is there going to be famine?
Yeah.
How are people going to spend in January? And unless you've got that skill set, that mindset, that forward thinking, you know, have you already planned towards it?
Yeah.
Majority have. But as we know, Facebook, there's always those people who don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Who are then going, well, I haven't got any clients in next week. What do I do? So that becomes firefighting. So it's, I think the language that needs to go out as well is, you know, firefighting, planning, two completely different things, two completely different strategies. And that's where, you know, something like your podcast that can go out and just say to those people, you know, well, actually there's a problem with you and your business, and being blunt enough to actually say that rather than, oh babe, well, have you tried this, have you tried that? That's a tertiary, that's toxic positivity. That's a tertiary kind of thing to say, you know, do this now and you'll feel your till for a week. That's not actually helping with the crux of what we're talking about.
And what I notice, and what I notice most is that those posts, you know, and you see them heavily through November and into early December, and until you've been serving in this industry for probably 2 or 3 years, you don't see the patterns. And so often those posts of, I've got no clients, what am I going to do? Oh my, you know, this one's cancelled, I've got this no-show, and all of those negative posts that happen at that time, this time of year. And you get this about a 6-week period where clients just generally seem to go quieter. And it happens, you know, no matter how busy your salon is, you know, there are going to be cancellations, there are going to be no-shows, there are going to be clients that stretch those appointments. And if you know that, then you can plan for it. And you have to remember that within the resilience of your business has to be that you don't look at that day, that 2 days, that week, that month even. You look at the quarter, you look at the 6 months, and you look at the year. And your income isn't validated by how many people you have in on that day. Your revenue is validated by how many people you have come in on the 300 days a year that you're open. And if you start focusing on that minute detail of, well, it's Tuesday afternoon and I've had 2 clients cancel, you're forgetting that on another 30 Tuesdays you were fully booked.
It also becomes that mindset of panic, because it's the state of lack, isn't it? Yeah. That person is automatically in a state of lack anyway. Yeah. Because
they haven't balanced, you know. I mean, I always knew after the first 2 years of running my salon, and even from being in industry previous to that, when I had my home salon and when I worked for somebody else, you know, you see that there's peaks and there's natural peaks and troughs. and it isn't even necessarily troughs. There's a natural line of clients, and then you have peaks from that. It's not that they're a trough, they're just the day-to-day running of a salon line. And then you have peaks at holiday seasons, and you have peaks at wedding season. You have peaks.
Unless you're tracking that,
yeah,
and we go back to the boring but necessary systems in place. You take your admin time out.
Yeah.
You are logging all of this. You're not going to see it.
No.
So
and I think my world changed when, and I will mention Avatu, because I loved Avatu, and I'm just about to open my home salon. I'm probably going to go back to Avatu because I tried a different brand and I didn't like them. But the reporting, when you've got an online booking system that is meant for reporting, rather than just making calendar appointments, is just, and I could sit and I could pick out custom windows throughout my year and work out, so when you're going to be quieter, so then you can plan for it. And then things like my white space planner come in really handy. but all of that, you have to see you always need to look for the positives, I think, don't you? And when you have got those quiet times, there's a reason it's quiet, and that's to allow you to grow.
100%.
Yeah.
So bringing all of that back round too, I'm going to quote an education psychology thing, but it's also outside of education. But when you start to learn to teach, or you should be looking at the fundamental thing of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
If I said that to any salon owner, only probably the ones who've been in teaching or the ones who are interested in psychology are going to know what on earth I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you don't understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs, go and look it up, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Do you know what the thing is? I've done it, because I've done my petals, and I have done Carver, and I know that, but I just can't recall any information about it. I blame menopause.
So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to simplify it down, right? When I was teaching, if we put it into that environment, when I was in Tottenham, I would know that my students who are in a place of lack, by the way that their money would run out towards the end of the month, would turn up on a Monday morning to my A&P class and would have fed their kids but not themselves. So because I understood that I would get nothing out of them if they weren't fed, watered, feeling secure and safe, that would be me taking breakfast in. Me, do you know what, this Monday morning, it's always horrific. I'm having breakfast with you, so I'm not highlighting their lack, their need. Will you join me in having breakfast? Yeah. So it becomes also how you introduce this into the salon, that your staff are in the same boat as you. They're going to have issues with their financial security and their financial safety. Part of your psychological safety, and if we bring in Maslow into our environment, are they fed? Are they watered? Are they at peace? Have they had enough sleep? Is their mindset great at the beginning of the day to deliver that service that you require them and that level to their clients? If you're not doing a 5-minute meeting really every morning just to check in with your team, everybody all right, you're not going to know until somebody's imploded halfway through the day. So it becomes that psychological concept of needs and safety becomes something a very minor thing to do in salon that actually means a lot. So like with you, okay, sausage rolls, not the greatest, but it's that thought of, we're busy, what can I put out in the back for my team? Have they got a bottle of water that they can take into the room that they're sipping? Because that's the other thing that staff will do. I'm going to have a coffee. Oh God, I feel shaky. I feel really funny at the end of that. How many coffees you had? Oh, I've had 6. Very small ones. What are you doing to your body? It's your endocrine system's then going to go haywire. You're not going to sleep. You're not going to have the quality of sleep. You're not going to wind down.
No.
It's that understanding of what well-being is.
And I'm just sort of thinking, one of the things that I should have done, and we all should do, especially if we have aromatherapy oils in our environment when we're at work, is have like a nice diffuser going in the staff area.
Don't get me on that though. As an aromatherapist, just if you don't know what you're doing, don't put it on.
Well, yes, there is that as well. But maybe use a pre-blended oil. But there is every oil manufacturer does pre-blends, and maybe just having a mindful or like oil burning in your staff area, or even just through the salon generally, just have something that initiates a calmness of mind. Because it's
don't even start me on lighting, mood setting, and everything, because I could absolutely.
This is it. There's just so much opportunity. There's just so many things that you can do, isn't there?
Talk about,
But one of the things I did want to kind of look at as well is that, like, the triggers that we have around us at Christmas, and not necessarily just at Christmas, because obviously the podcast can be listened to and the video can be watched at any point throughout the year. And there's always, Christmas is probably the biggest trigger for people, but it does go through to any time of the year.
It's
really
being mindful of your teams and your
of where they
solo,
are in their lives.
your triggers.
And it is, and we were saying before we started recording, like I lost my mum on Christmas Eve. She died at 11:45 on Christmas Eve, and my kids were I think 10 and 13 when she died, and or 10 and 12 when she died. And we had to kind of hide it from the kids for 2 days to get them through Christmas. So I had my Christmas day I went to bed having literally just got home from the hospital, having lost my mum, and the next morning I had to get up and play Christmas
function.
And understandably it was a bit of a challenge, and I was back. I look back now what I did, and I was back in the salon on the 27th of December. I had my home salon at the time, and I was back in. And my poor client came in. I still remember, sorry. She came in and was like, "Oh, did you have a nice Christmas?" And I was like, "No, my mum died." And I was that blunt. I think I was obviously like in a state of shock, really.
Yeah.
But for me, for years, like now, Christmas Eve is a couple of weeks away, and it's 15 years ago, and it's it's still there, obviously, because it's never going to go away. But those points of understanding and Christmas particularly is one of the biggest pressure points for grief awareness. And I think that we need to all consider what our staff may have gone through in that year, and our clients may have gone through in that year. That is going to be their first Christmas without that person.
So this brings it back round to, do your team have the toolbox to be able to manage those types of situations? Just
it's
looking
hard.
at I've got 10% battery.
Oh goodness, we better wrap up. I wanted to kind of just put that in, because I know how challenging it was for me, and I had a really good support network, and probably for the next 5-6 years, and even now my best friend still texts me on Christmas Eve to say, "Thinking of you today." And those support networks at that point in the year are so vital. So you do need to consider what your staff have been through, and it can be even just. But
it's also if your staff have the support network. I've shipped from north to south. Beforehand and know nobody. So again, it's that mindfulness of who you've got as a physical being in your business. I'm the same as you. I lost my dad last year. Yes, it was September. Last Christmas. This Christmas it's all right. It's all right. But if I walked into a salon and Driving Home for Christmas came on, I'd have to turn around and walk back out again. So
there is, isn't there? There's all those different triggers, and we do have to be so thoughtful. And for me, when I was in the salon, there would be certain songs like Nat King Cole. My mum loved Nat King Cole, so whenever that comes on, trigger. And when I'm doing my and it is, and the thing that always does me is when I do my Christmas tree, and I did it early this year, much earlier than I normally do, and it still got me. And I just, as soon as there's certain decorations I put on the tree that have got a sentimental value, and it just still rips me apart. And it's 15 years on, but there's elements that someone else always knows what I'm going through. And I think that if you're the boss of that person, just having an understanding that they may be having a difficult time, and that maybe their Christmas isn't the happiest, and especially at the moment, with money and all the different things that are going on for people, that's everybody's Christmas, particularly this year, is probably going to be.
I'm going to use a phrase here, okay, that it's, you know, there's no I in team and all of that crap, but it's not about me, it's about us.
Yeah.
And that was a
Getting through
phrase
it
that was
together.
delivered to me in training years ago, that when you are leading a team, leading, not managing, that it isn't just about that one individual. And it comes back to my favorite phrase at the moment is your treasure chest. Your team are your treasure chest, you know, and you are that chest, keeping them all in place, and bringing out, you know, their shininess,
Yeah.
you know, every day with the clients. So valuing people. And I think that's another thing that we've forgotten to do.
Yeah.
You know, to value the people that not are only coming in putting money in our pockets, but the people who are facilitating that.
Yeah.
So
I think we've also, through the last couple of years, I think that we've all become perhaps a little bit more self-centered.
yeah,
And in
jaded.
some ways that's not a
Yeah.
bad thing, but I think when other people are struggling, that isn't such a positive
It's when it
attitude.
becomes a problem that is impacting on how
Yeah.
everything else is functioning.
I think we have, because we've had to look after ourselves, and we've had to bring it down to our household and the people
Yeah.
living in it. And we had to, and although we were doing it all for the greater good and the rest of it, but you have had to be that selfish, that you
Yeah.
have looked after yourselves and your loved one. And I think now, with everything that's happening, we need to kind of open our arms again, don't we?
Yeah.
And open our hearts again, really.
100%.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
yes.
So I think we'll leave the discussion there, but so what have you got coming up? Because I know you've got some like really exciting stuff coming up.
My first pillar, as it were, that I'm releasing is the RQF level 3 supervising mental health in the workplace. I'm not allowed to call it mental health first aid because that's trademarked by another company. But it's basically what it is. You know, what's in a name? It's a qualification that lasts for 3 years. When you do it. Yeah. There is a level 1, 2 and 3. Level 1 and 2 are more for team awareness. Level 3 is where you are learning, I'm going to call it the hard stuff, the nitty gritty, from personality disorders and personality issues and signposting and recognition, right the way through to anxiety, depression, and that conversation with somebody with suicide. So it's, you know, we have Tom Chapman. He does an absolutely blinding job. Love the guy. I'm coming from a different tact with it. It's about you and your team and looking at each other as well as looking at the client. And then that will feed into my wellbeing champion program. So it's something that corporate does. You know, you have a wellbeing champion. It's usually the health and safety person, but bringing that down to sort of base level, where somebody has the skill set and is that go-to point, that bridge, if you like, between I'm feeling this way, I'm not functioning, I don't really want to go and talk to the owner, or I'm not sleeping, I'm breastfeeding, I've got menopause symptoms, you know, it's that whole thing, or I feel like I need to go through transition, or whatever it may be. You have somebody in your team who can, yes, look at the clients and help to deal with that side with the clients, but also you've got somebody who's your anchor, and who's that anchor who will then bridge that person where they need to go and signpost them, but enable that safe place, that sanctuary to be at work. And it could be one person or it could be the whole of your team.
Yeah,
you know, that is entirely up to you how you sort of forge your CPD with your team.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's my passion project. And I will be doing stress risk assessment with you, because how many people have got them in our industry? 5 or more employees. You should have a stress and wellbeing policy and risk assessment in place. If you haven't, then that's what I will do with you as well.
Yeah. That's good. And I think as well, the HSE kind of missed the point sometimes, don't they, with this 5 employees or more. And although as a legal requirement, there has to be a criteria and there has to be a point.
Yeah.
But I do think that as a serious salon professional owner, if you have a team of more than you, it's something that you probably, just as like good practice, you know, just because it's not a legal requirement.
Do you know what? I'm going to rewind it back. It's part of your SOP. if you've got your systems and operational procedures, even if it's up there, you know, it's the due diligence thing. And have you done everything that you can do to make that sanctuary, safe place, that place where everybody wants to come, whether it's to work or to come for service? And that's just not about having nice fluffy towels.
No, that is important. Let's not take that away.
And a cocktail bar.
Having soggy oil covered towels really is a turn off. And I've been to that salon or that spa where you could feel the weight of the oil on you. Oh,
so this is the other thing that I'm noticing, just to sort of add this point in the end. A lot of people going, oh, I'm serving cocktails, I'm serving alcohol, I'm serving this. Do you actually, and could you actually recognise if a client comes in who's saying, no, thank you, there could be a reason behind that. You know, so have your team actually got that mindset?
And also, sorry, because it's one thing that always comes into my head is that, and I think it's different if they're coming in having the nails done, coming in having their hair done. But if they're coming in and they're lying on your couch, why are you giving them alcohol? Sorry, just whole health and safety thing going on there. Just leave that there. And thank you, Sam. Her battery obviously died. We've been on a little while before we were doing recording as well. So thank you so much, Sam, for coming on and talking about everything to do with in salon wellbeing for our teams and for ourselves as owners and business professionals. We really do need to kind of think about that kind of stuff. So thank you very much. I am going to have probably one more episode before Christmas, then I'm going to take a break for a couple of weeks, and would love to thank you all for listening and for watching, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Inspiring Salon Professionals. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review and share with fellow industry professionals that you think may enjoy the show. Links and further information can be found on the show notes or on my website www.suedavies.org. Here you can also find some downloadable free guides that you may find of use. You can also hear from me and join the Inspiring Salon Professionals community on my Facebook group. Thanks again and see you next time. Bye for now.